Have you ever witnessed a civilization collapse so slowly, so deliberately, that it felt like it was all part of some grand performance? I have, and I'm going to tell you that story. A story not just about survival, but about hope, surprise, and the kind of people who simply refused to give up. You know what's absolutely hilarious? The fact that I, Ambassador Alira Vex of the mighty Sirius system, am sitting here recording this message while watching our supposedly advanced civilization crumble around me. Oh, the irony. But let me start from the beginning, because this story needs to be told. Nova 7 was supposed to be our crowning achievement, a perfect jewel of a colony established at the edge of the Orion Spur. 3 suns, perfect atmospheric composition, and enough rare minerals to make any mining corporation drool. We had it all planned out, every single detail meticulously calculated by our most brilliant minds. But here's the thing about perfect plans. They have this annoying habit of falling apart in the most spectacular ways possible. It started with the atmospheric processors, those beautiful 100-story tall machines that helped us breathe. They started failing one by one, like dominoes in some cruel game played by fate. Our engineers, the boys, led by the brilliant but increasingly frustrated technical director Kira Solon, worked around the clock. Their dedication was admirable, truly, but dedication alone couldn't fix what was essentially becoming a planetary-scale disaster. Ambassador Nex, Petra said to me just last week, her holographic projection flickering with static. We're losing control of the Northern Hemisphere's weather patterns. The terraforming grid is, well, it's not just failing. It's actively working against us. I remember laughing then, not because it was funny, but because what else could I do? Our colony of 50,000 souls was watching its carefully constructed environment literally fall apart. The protective shields that kept our 3 suns' radiation at bay were degrading. Our food production facilities were operating at 30% capacity. And the worst part, our supposedly loyal allies, the Centauri Federation, had gone completely silent. Oh, the Centauri Federation. Let me tell you about these paragons of interstellar cooperation. For decades, they preached about unity among the stars, about how their advanced technology and ancient wisdom would guide younger civilizations like ours. They signed treaties, made promises, and swore eternal friendship. But the moment our distress signals reached their precious central worlds, radio silence, complete and utter abandonment. Governor Saria Noor took it the hardest. I found her in the central command hub yesterday, staring at the emergency broadcast system. The display showed hundreds of unanswered distress calls, each one represented by a tiny red dot. The room was dark, illuminated only by those dots like a constellation of broken promises. "They're not coming, are they?" she asked, not turning around. Her voice carried the weight of 50,000 lives. "No," I replied, "they're not." Then we're truly alone out here. The thing is, we weren't just some minor outpost. Nova 7 was his home to some of our brightest minds. Professor Ryan Maddox and his team had made groundbreaking discoveries in quantum mechanics here. The medical research facility, led by Dr. Mira Ellen, was on the verge of curing diseases that had plagued multiple species for centuries. But none of that mattered now. Our infrastructure was failing faster than we could repair it. The protective dome over Solmir City, our largest settlement, was showing signs of stress fractures. The mineral extraction facilities that were supposed to be our ticket to prosperity had become death traps, with unstable ground threatening to swallow entire complexes whole. And through it all, I had to maintain diplomatic communications, had to keep sending those pointless unanswered messages into the void. This is Ambassador Alira Vex of Nova 7 requesting immediate assistance. Our situation is critical. We have children here, families. Your sworn allies need you." The void, predictably, never answered back. But then, well, then something happened that none of our probability computers could have predicted. Something that would change everything we thought we knew about our place in the galaxy. You know what's worse than watching your world fall apart? Watching it fall apart in precisely calculated increments. Our systems were kind enough to provide us with exact timestamps for each upcoming disaster. Thanks for that, technology. Really helpful. Shield failure in Sector 748 hours remaining. Atmospheric processing plant, 336 hours until critical failure. Main hydroponics facility, 72 hours until total crop loss. The alerts kept coming, each one another nail in our colony's coffin. We tried everything. Professor Torres converted our entertainment centers into makeshift power stations. Dr. Reeves turned her medical research facility into an emergency food production lab. The woman worked miracles with algae, horrible-tasting miracles, but beggars can't be choosers. But here's the real kicker. While we were fighting for survival, guess who showed up? Not our allies. Oh no. Instead, we got First Speaker Tris Velan from the Pleiadian Concordat. Now that was interesting, because the Pleiadians, they weren't exactly known for their charity. Speaker Tris Velan landed in a ship that practically screamed, "Look how important I am," all gleaming silver and unnecessary decorative fins. The landing pad was barely holding together, and this person was worried about making an entrance. "Ambassador Nex," they said, stepping out with that typical Pleiadian grace that always made me want to trip them. "We received your distress signal." Really? Just the one? Because we sent about 10,000. Speaker Tris Valen either didn't understand sarcasm or chose to ignore it. "We've come to observe your situation. Observe, not help, not rescue. Observe, like we were some fascinating experiment in failure." That's when Governor Elara Quinn stepped in. And let me tell you, if you've never seen a human angry, you're missing out on one of the universe's most terrifying sights. Governor Blake had arrived 3 standard months ago as part of an early diplomatic exchange. She was supposed to be learning about our culture. Instead, she ended up teaching us about human resilience. And right now, she was about to teach Speaker Tris Velan about human diplomacy. "First Speaker," Blake said, her voice carrying that dangerous calm humans get before they do something absolutely insane. "You came all this way to observe? Well, let me give you something to observe." Then she proceeded to pull up holographic displays showing our failing systems, our dying crops, our desperate citizens. Each image more devastating than the last. This isn't a show. These are people, families, children, and while you're here to observe, they're here dying. Speaker Tris Valen had the decency to look uncomfortable. "The Concordat sympathizes, but our treaties..." "Treaties?" Blake laughed, and even I flinched at the sound. "You know what humans call people who hide behind treaties while others suffer? Actually, I better not translate that term." Meanwhile, our situation kept deteriorating. The magnetic shields protecting us from our 3 suns' radiation were failing faster than predicted. The ground under Solmir City was becoming increasingly unstable. We lost Contact Hub 3 when it simply sank into a suddenly appearing chasm. Security Chief Nyla Kor organized volunteer teams to evacuate the most dangerous sectors. She worked with minimal sleep, running on nothing but synthetic caffeine and sheer determination. "We can't save the building," she told me, "but we're not losing a single life. Not one. That was when Governor Blake made a decision that would change everything. While Speaker Tris Valen was still spouting diplomatic nonsense about observation protocols and non-intervention guidelines, Blake disappeared into our communications center. We found her hours later, surrounded by modified transmitters. She'd cannibalized her own ship's communication array to boost the signal strength. "What are you doing?" I asked, watching her work with a determination that bordered on madness. "Calling home," she replied, not looking up from her work. "Look, your people reached out to everyone who promised to help. Now it's time to reach out to people who help, even when they haven't promised anything." Speaker Tris Valen looked scandalized. "You're contacting Earth? But they're not part of any major alliance. They don't have the proper treaties or protocols." "Exactly," Blake grinned, and there was something in that grin that made me both terrified and hopeful. They don't have protocols telling them they can't help. And trust me, when humans hear about a colony in trouble, protocols are the last thing they care about. The signal went out, a desperate call for help, bypassing all the official channels, breaking about 50 different diplomatic regulations, and we waited. You ever see something so beautiful it makes you cry? No? Well, let me tell you about the most beautiful sight in my entire diplomatic career. 15 ships dropping out of hyperspace with absolutely no regard for proper entry protocols. "What are those, Nova?" Rex demanded, staring at the tactical display. The ships were different. Not the sleek, standardized designs of the Centauri Federation or the ostentatious vessels of the Pleiadian Concordat. These ships looked like they'd been cobbled together by someone with more enthusiasm than aesthetics. "Those," Governor Blake said, grinning like a proud parent, "are humans being humans." The lead ship was massive. A converted mining vessel, if I had to guess. Its hull marked with patches and modifications that would give any standard engineer a heart attack. Behind it came ships of all sizes and designs, some military, some civilian, all of them bristling with improvised equipment. Our communications system crackled to life. "This is Captain Helen Drake of the Earth vessel Salvation's Grace. Heard you folks could use a hand." The casual tone nearly gave Speaker Tris Valen an aneurysm. "This is a complex diplomatic situation. You can't just—" "Actually," I cut in, "yes, they can. And yes, please do." Captain Winters appeared on our main screen, and honestly, not what I expected. She looked like someone's favorite aunt who bakes cookies, not a starship captain. Her gray hair was pulled back in a practical bun, smile lines crinkled around her eyes, and she wore what appeared to be a hand-knit sweater over her uniform. "Right then," she said, pulling up what looked like a handwritten list. "We've got atmospheric processors from the Jupiter colonies, shield generators from Mars, and enough emergency supplies to feed a small army, which, by the way, we also brought engineering corps, medical teams, and a bunch of volunteers who wouldn't take no for an answer." Behind her, I could see her bridge crew, a fascinating mix of humans. There was Commander Leon Grant at Tactical, looking like he'd rather be fixing engines than manning a weapons station. Lieutenant Naya Suresh at Navigation, already calculating optimal approaches through our destabilizing atmosphere, and Chief Engineer Dax Monroe, who was doing something highly irregular to their ship's power systems while muttering about giving her all she's got. "This is highly irregular," Speaker Tris Valen protested. "There are procedures. People are dying," Captain Winters interrupted, her grandmotherly demeanor suddenly steel-hard. "Procedures can wait." The next few hours were absolute chaos. The good kind. The kind that makes you believe in miracles again. Human ships descended into our atmosphere like they were taking a Sunday drive, not navigating through deteriorating shield coverage and unpredictable solar flares. The first team to land was led by Commander Erin Zhao of the Emergency Response Unit. She took one look at our failing atmospheric processors and started laughing. "What's so funny?" I asked, slightly offended. "Sorry," she said, wiping her eyes. "It's just, we had the exact same problem on Europa Station last year. Exact same model, exact same failure pattern. These things are garbage without the proper modifications." Her team unloaded equipment I'd never seen before, custom-built solutions that violated at least a dozen manufacturing standards, but worked better than the originals ever had. Then came Dr. Nolan Farr, and yes, this caused quite a stir with our Dr. Mira Ellen. No relation, just cosmic coincidence. He took one look at our medical facilities and started reorganizing everything with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 100 times before. "Your biofilters are fighting your atmospheric processors," he explained, speaking around the stylus he held between his teeth while typing on 3 different tablets simultaneously. "Easy fix, we saw this on Titan. Just need to..." There we go. The human ships kept coming. The Star Chaser, captained by retired racing pilot turned rescue specialist pilot Ayla Rook, brought atmospheric mining equipment to help stabilize our air supply. The Providence under Captain Cyrus Hale carried enough prefab shelters to house everyone in the failing sectors of Solmir City. But it was the crew of Salvation's Grace that really captured our attention. Captain Winters ran her operation like a combination of military precision and family dinner. Her crew jumped between tasks with practiced ease, solving problems before we even realized we had them. "Those shield harmonics are all wrong for a triple-star system," Chief O'Reilly announced, hanging upside down from our main shield generator. "Who designed this?" "Never mind, don't tell me. I don't want to be prejudiced against them when I fix it." Speaker Tris Valen watched all this with an expression that kept shifting between horror at the violations of standard procedure and awe at the results those violations produced. Finally, they asked the question that had been bothering them. "Why? Why did you come? There's no treaty obligating Earth to help, no diplomatic advantage to be gained, no rare resources to be claimed as payment." Captain Winters paused in the middle of coordinating 3 different rescue operations to give them a look that made me understand why humans had survived everything their harsh world had thrown at them. "Because you needed help," she said simply. "That's all the reason we need. Let me tell you about watching humans solve problems. Imagine seeing a group of children presented with a puzzle designed for quantum physicists. And instead of being intimidated, they decide to turn it into a game. That's humans for you. They don't just think outside the box. They take the box apart, rebuild it into something else, and use the leftover pieces to make lunch. Take our atmospheric crisis. Our engineers had spent months trying to stabilize the processors using approved methods. Chief O'Reilly took one look at the system and said, "Right, who wants to learn how to hotwire a planetary atmosphere?" I nearly had a diplomatic incident right there. "Hotwire, like stealing a vehicle." "Exactly," he beamed, completely missing my horror. "See, your atmospheric processors are too smart for their own good. They're trying to maintain perfect conditions. We're going to make them a bit dumber, but a lot more efficient." His team proceeded to do things with our multi-billion credit equipment that would have voided warranties across 17 star systems. And it worked. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't protocol, but by the stars, it worked. Commander Parks's team tackled our unstable ground problem with equal disregard for conventional wisdom. They brought something called concrete, a primitive earth-building material that our scientists had dismissed centuries ago as too basic. "Sometimes," Park explained, "while directing massive pouring operations, the old ways work best. This stuff helped us stabilize Mercury's first colonies. Your fancy molecular reinforcement looks great on paper, but it can't handle the stress patterns of 3 suns like good old-fashioned concrete can. Speaker Tris Velan watched all this with growing fascination. They'd started taking notes, which was probably violating about 50 different Pleiadian observation protocols. This is not how rescue operations are supposed to work. They muttered. Oh, Captain Winters raised an eyebrow. And how many successful planetary rescues have you conducted? The silence was rather telling, but it wasn't all smooth sailing. Cultural misunderstandings popped up faster than hull breaches in a meteor shower, like when Dr. Nolan Farr tried to organize a pizza party for the medical staff. You want to boost morale by serving flatbread with processed vegetation and protein during a crisis? Our medical director asked, baffled. Trust me, Reeves winked. Everything's better with pizza. He was right, by the way, though I'm still not sure about the thing they call pineapple. Then there was the incident with the mining equipment. Lieutenant Patel had an idea about using modified mining lasers to stabilize our shield grid. The conversation went something like this. You want to shoot at our shields? I asked. Technically, we want to shoot at your shield generators, she clarified, as if that made it better. With mining lasers. Modified mining lasers, she corrected. We adjusted the frequency to match your shield harmonics. It's like giving them a power boost through carefully controlled trauma. That's insane. That's Tuesday on Earth, she shrugged. And it worked, because of course it did. The real breakthrough came when Captain Winters discovered our library of failed solutions. 3 months of carefully documented attempts to save our colony, all following proper procedures, all ending in failure. She spent an hour reading through them, occasionally making sounds that ranged from thoughtful humming to outright laughter. You know what your problem is? She finally said. You kept trying to solve each issue separately, but everything's connected. The shields, the atmosphere, the ground stability. It's all one big system. She gathered her crew and our engineers in what used to be our main conference room. The humans insisted on bringing coffee, another Earth beverage that I'm pretty sure qualifies as a controlled substance on most civilized worlds. Right, Winters said, spreading out actual physical papers across the table. Time for some good old-fashioned brainstorming. What followed was 6 hours of the most creative problem-solving I've ever witnessed. They called it spitballing, an absolutely horrifying term that I later learned had nothing to do with actual bodily functions. Ideas flew across the room like meteor fragments, each one crazier than the last. What if we use the mining lasers to heat the unstable ground, then cool it rapidly with the atmospheric processors, suggested Martinez, while using the shield generators to contain the thermal stress, added O'Reilly. And we can time it with the solar flares to use their energy instead of fighting it. Patel chimed in. Speaker Tris Velan looked like they were having some sort of spiritual experience. This violates at least 73 different safety protocols. Yeah, Blake grinned. But will it work? The answer, as it turned out, was yes. The humans called it controlled chaos theory, though I suspect they made that term up on the spot. They implemented their solution in stages, each one carefully monitored but executed with a speed that made our safety officers need sedation. The most amazing part, they turned it into a community event. Instead of evacuating sectors during the stabilization process, they organized what they called block parties. People gathered in safe zones, sharing food, telling stories, and watching their world being put back together through methods that defied every engineering textbook ever written. See, Captain Winters said, watching another sector turn green on our monitoring systems. Sometimes you need to stop treating a planet like a machine and start treating it like a living thing, a little messy, a little unpredictable, but all the more beautiful for it. You know what's better than watching your world fall apart? Watching it come back together in ways you never imagined possible. It's been 7 standard days since the humans arrived, and I hardly recognize Helios 7 anymore. Not because it's changed so much, but because it's become what it was always meant to be. The shield grid now pulses with a beautiful rhythm, synchronized with our 3 suns in a way our original engineers insisted was impossible. Chief O'Reilly calls it dancing with the stars, which he finds hilarious for some reason he refuses to explain. The trick, he told our engineering team while hanging upside down from a maintenance scaffold, isn't to fight the natural forces, it's to work with them, guide them, maybe take them out for dinner first. Our own engineers looked horrified until they saw the efficiency readings. Now they're busy integrating Earth's primitive solutions with our advanced technology. The results are, well, Speaker Tris Valen actually dropped their data pad when they saw the numbers. Speaking of Speaker Tris Valen, they haven't left yet. Apparently they're writing what they call a minority report to the Pleiadian Concordat. I caught a glimpse of it. The phrase, "Everything we know is wrong," appeared several times, along with requesting immediate policy review and humans are terrifying, but in a good way. The changes aren't just technical. Captain Winters insisted on establishing what she calls community centers in each sector, places where people can gather, share ideas, and solve problems together. The concept seemed ridiculous at first. Why would you want regular citizens involved in colonial operations? Then I watched a maintenance worker suggest a modification to our water recycling system based on their experience raising exotic fish in their quarters. The modification worked better than anything our experts had tried. Captain Winters just smiled that knowing smile of hers. "See?" she said. "Good ideas don't care what degree you have or what species you are." The integration of human and alien technology has produced some fascinating results. Our atmospheric processors now run on a hybrid system that combines our precision control with Earth's robust backup methods. Dr. Nolan Farr and our doctor, Mira Ellen, still no relation. They collaborated on a new medical database that merges our advanced treatments with Earth's practical experience. "Your medical technology is amazing," Benjamin said during one of their late-night research sessions. "But sometimes a splint and some encouragement work better than a molecular reconstructor." The ground stabilization project finished yesterday. Commander Park's team celebrated by organizing a game of baseball on the newly solidified ground. I'm still not entirely sure of the rules, but watching Speaker Tris Valen try to understand why hitting a small ball with a stick was causing so much excitement was worth the confusion. Lieutenant Patel's shield modifications have become something of a tourist attraction. The energy harmonics create beautiful light patterns in our upper atmosphere. Our artists are already incorporating the new phenomena into their works. Someone called them Aurora Borealis on steroids, another Earth reference I'm afraid to ask about. But perhaps the most significant change has been in our people's attitudes. The humans didn't just fix our colony. They showed us a new way of thinking about problems, about cooperation, about what's possible when you stop saying, "That's not how we do things," and start asking, "What if we tried this?" Governor Blake and I were discussing this during what humans call a coffee break, a sacred ritual I've come to appreciate, even if the beverage makes me see biosounds. "You know what the real problem was?" she asked on her 4th cup of the mysterious liquid. "You all got so caught up in doing things the right way that you forgot to do things the working way." "That's not very diplomatic of you," I pointed out. Good thing I'm a governor and not a diplomat." She winked. Yesterday, we received a transmission from the Centauri Federation. They'd finally deigned to respond to our distress calls, sending a message full of diplomatic phrases and vague promises of future assistance. Captain Winters read it aloud to her crew, who found it hilarious. "Tell them thanks," she suggested, "but we've got it covered, though they're welcome to join next week's barbecue." I sent an appropriately diplomatic response, though. I may have mentioned casually that our colony's operational efficiency has increased by 300% using methods they'd previously declared impossible. And yes, I attached the data. And yes, I set the message priority to urgent. I'm learning about human-style pettiness, and I must say I'm enjoying it. The rescue fleet will be leaving soon, but they're not leaving us alone. Earth has proposed a permanent exchange program. They'll send engineers, scientists, and troubleshooters to help us maintain our new systems, and in return, we'll share our advanced theoretical knowledge. "Besides, Captain," Winters said during the negotiation, "you make better coffee than the Martian colonies. We have to protect our interests. I've been asked to record an official summary of the events for the Galactic archives. They want to know how a preeminent colony of the Sirius system was saved by a species that still gets excited about throwing small balls with sticks. Here's what I'm going to tell them. The humans didn't save us because they were more advanced, or stronger, or smarter. They saved us because they never learned to stop trying, never accepted impossible as an answer, and never, ever left people in trouble just because helping them would be complicated." Speaker Tris Velen summed it up best during their farewell speech. "In all our studies of advanced civilizations, we never considered that advancement might mean knowing when to ignore the rules. The humans haven't just saved a colony. They've given us a new way to look at the galaxy." They paused, then added, "Also, pizza is surprisingly good. As I record this final section, I'm watching Earth's rescue fleet prepare for departure. Their ships still look like they were designed by optimistic children with no regard for aesthetics. Their methods still make our engineers wake up in cold sweats. Their solutions still violate dozens of regulations, but they work. They work because humans understand something that the rest of us forgot somewhere along our path to the stars. Sometimes the best way forward isn't the most elegant solution, but the one that brings people together and gets the job done. And if that solution happens to involve both cutting-edge technology and duct tape, well, as Captain Winters would say, whatever works. Recording ends." Final note: petition to classify coffee as a controlled substance denied. Personal note: thank the stars for that. Ambassador Alira Vex, signing off, though I might stay for one more cup of coffee.